Something that's just really been on my mind and in my heart recently is how obvious it is that in nature, death is not an end, but it just lays down the foundation for new life. And I can't help but see Christ in this and feel in my heart that this is, in some sense, the message that he came to give. This nature is terrifying. If I were to spend a night out here in the bugs and the rotten wood, my fears would come alive so terribly. And that is a reflection of this human mind, which doesn't see in darkness and needs light, and sees the symbols of death, like rotting and insects and things falling apart, disease, and can't help but be terrified. And so they say that Christ conquered death, and I'm not here to argue that, but I see more that Christ atoned death with life. He at-oned death with life, and that was his message. That death is not an end, but it is just the foundation for new life. How I see it, we live in this world that we've really tried to pin down, really try to explain, and really try to make it appear that it is solid for our own sense of comfort and control and understanding, because the mind is so rigidly needing to know, and it so desperately grasps for things to hold on to. But when I look at the Greek word of aletheia, which is used in the Bible for truth or simply reality, we see that what they're talking about when it comes to truth and reality is something that is constantly unfolding, constantly revealing and concealing itself. So the way that I see it, we live in this world that is just constantly changing. And due to our human mind's need for control in an ever-changing world, we divide it up. And that would actually sort of be like the root of the word for science, would be like like scissors, to cut up. And so we cut up this world due to the fall from the garden, through eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We cut up the world into good and evil, good and bad, want and diswant, like and dislike, life and death. And this is what causes our suffering. And that is what causes our wars, saying this is my land and not your land. This is us and that is you. This is what caused the fall from paradise, which was an undifferentiated way of being in nature. And so due to that sin of cutting everything up, differentiating it, saying this is mine and that's yours, right? Adam said, I didn't do it, she did it. It wasn't me, it was her, even though she was taken from his rib. Due to that, we've been kicked out of the garden. And that is a mental state, that is a spiritual state. So it seems what Christ came to do was to atone, as it's written, to at one our understanding of life and death, of good and evil, back into one thing. To see that just like the tree dead behind me, rotting behind me, death is not in opposition to life, but it lays down the foundation for the new life to grow, to be born. So as truth, as reality unfolds, it happens like this. It happens through the symbols of death encroaching into our cut up, boundaried, differentiated, clean cut world, right? We've designated our house. We've built our home. And then it crumbles back into nature. And we suffer. We struggle to keep it as it is, to keep it built up and to keep ourselves clothed and safe and warm. And so that is the unfolding of simply just reality, that things fall apart, things get destroyed, nothing is permanent. And so the thing that I like to always remember is that Revelation and apocalypse are also the same word in the biblical Greek. So they are the same thing, right? This revelation of truth, this revelation of the undifferentiated reality of creation brings about an apocalypse of our worlds that we have built, our little cut up, designated realities and worlds that we live in get destroyed. And when we live in the perspective of good and evil, we say, oh, that is a punishment. You displeased God and you sinned. And that is why these bad things are happening to you. And that is, when you're in that perspective, it's just so natural to think that, because that perspective is all encompassing. And we do it to keep a mental safety, right? Because thinking that way, we all know, I think it's even written in the Bible, like wicked people thrive in the world. So, it doesn't really work to believe that way. It doesn't really work to see the world that way. It doesn't really work to see God working that way. So, through the apocalypse, through the revelation, if we can stand in the space of just letting go, right? Of saying, okay, God, thy will be done. Then it carries us through the storm into the new birth, into the new reality, into the new life, into the new world, which is still scary. It's still terrifying to see how fragile things really are, to not live with these mental differentiations between me and you, and oh, that person's homeless because they did this, and so I'm going to do that and make sure that I don't end up like them. You know, we use these judgments to keep ourselves within a mental framework of safety. But if we can let go of that, then we end up in the new world that is less differentiated, more vulnerable, but less of us can be harmed because the boundaries of us have thinned. There is less of us, right? We have lessened so God can increase. We have decreased so God can increase. God just being this creation, this weird system that is unfolding in front of us. And from that new perspective, we have a change of heart and a change of mind, and that is repentance. That is metanoia, as the biblical word would say, which just means, you know, something like a change of mind after knowing. I think that's what metanoia means. After knowing. Once we come into this new information, if we can let go, if we can forgive the people that we blamed for the destruction and the apocalypse of the old life, right? Because that's the thing, the old life will fall apart through the symbols of death. It's just natural that the old life will fall apart. God will use the symbols of death to bring about the apocalypse and the revelation. You know, somebody dies, we get a disease, some part of our life falls apart to reveal that death is in service of life. And standing in that place, if we do as Christ says, which is forgive, for they know not what they do, it's not even like forgive them because it's good for you. It's that you will see that just like Judas giving up Christ to the Romans, everything happened just as it was meant to happen. The people in your life that wronged you, seemingly, you will see that's not really what happened. That was just that could only exist in the old perspective. In the new perspective, you will see that everything happened exactly as it had to happen. And this will bring about repentance. This will bring about the metanoia. And so this is how I see the cycle of atonement, the cycle of at-one-ment, moving from this very distinguished, differentiated, cut-up, scientific way of looking at life and at creation into this messy, perfect in its imperfection way of living that's not about following law with your mind, but about following the laws of God that can only that can't not be followed. You know, you don't need to believe in gravity for it to work.